interestingly enough, again, tomorrow is the inauguration of Barack Obama, and giving the invocation is Rick Warren, the pastor Rick Warren from the Saddleback Church down in Southern California. Now, I have a little bit of tape, and of course, many people were upset by Rick Warren, Obama's decision to have Rick Warren give the invocation because of what he said about gay and lesbian folks. And there's even more that I think people have not heard of what he has had to say so far. And we wanted to play a little clip for you this morning of Rick Warren. This is the one who will be giving the invocation to Barack Obama's inauguration tomorrow. Let's take a listen.
What is the vision for the next 25 years? I'll tell you what it is. It is the global expansion of the kingdom of God. It is the total mobilization of His church. And the third part is the dream of a radical devotion of every believer. Now, I choose that word radical intentionally because only radicals change the world. Everything great done in this world is done by passionate people. Moderate people get moderately nothing done. And moderation will never slay the global giants. In 1939, in a stadium much like this, in Munich, Germany, they packed it out with young men and women in brown shirts for a fanatical man standing behind a podium named Adolf Hitler, the personification of evil. And in that stadium, those in brown shirts formed with their bodies a sign that said in the whole stadium, "Hitler, we are yours." And they nearly took the world. Lenin once said, "Give me 100 committed, totally committed men, and I'll change the world." And he nearly did. A few years ago, they took the sayings of Chairman Mao in China, put in a little red book, and a group of young people committed them to memory and put it in their minds. And they took that nation, the largest nation in the world, by storm because they committed to memory the sayings of the Chairman Mao. When I hear those kind of stories, I think, what would happen if American Christians, if world Christians, if just the Christians in this stadium, followers of Christ, would say, "Jesus, we are yours"? What kind of spiritual awakening would we have? Jesus said, "I want you to do this publicly." So what I want you to do is take the card, and in just a minute, if you say, "Rick, I am willing to serve God's purposes in my generation," I want you to open up to the sign that says, "Whatever it takes." Whatever it takes. And I want you to just say, "This is my commitment before God and in front of everybody else. I'm in." Then I would invite you to just stand quietly and hold up whatever it takes.
And that was Pastor Rick Warren speaking at the Saddleback Church. Rick Warren is the controversial pastor who will be doing the invocation of Barack Obama's inaugural ceremonies tomorrow. We're now joined in studio by Garrison, independent journalist here in the Bay Area. She writes for such publications as the San Francisco Bayview, as well as online publication Colored Opinions at blogspot.com. And again, the San Francisco Bayview is also online, primarily online. It does get published about once a month.
Once a month.
Yep. And she also writes for Colored Opinions at blogspot.com. And Garrison, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. It's an honor to be here on Martin Luther King's birthday and 2 days after the 48th anniversary of the assassination of Patrice Lumumba.
Well, it's good to have you here. You brought this piece of tape to my attention of Rick Warren. Your response to what you've heard?
Well, I don't feel qualified to speculate about Rick Warren's psyche and motivations, though I might have something to say about why he thinks that homosexuality is a choice later on. The background of this that I'd like to talk about is, believe it or not, the Congo War. I know everything that I know about Rick Warren, and his LGBT persecution in Africa and his irresponsible HIV/AIDS interventions there, because I research and write about the Congo War.
What is his connection to that?
Rick Warren is very involved with the presidents of Rwanda and Uganda, Rwandan President Paul Kagame and Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni. He's made both these nations his first purpose-driven nations. He has his best-selling book, The Purpose-Driven Life. It's an evangelical manual. In March this year, he went to Africa. He arrived in Uganda and announced his campaign to turn Uganda into his second purpose-driven nation, having succeeded in Rwanda. At the same time, he declared that homosexuality is not a natural way of life and therefore not a human right. And he joined Yoweri Museveni, the president of Uganda, in reinforcing the Ugandan bishops' determination, and the Ugandan Anglican bishops' determination to boycott the Anglican Lambeth Conference in England because they had invited the American Episcopalian Church. And the American Episcopalian Church, which is part of the Anglican Communion, had elected a gay bishop, Gene Robinson. So less than a year ago, Reverend Rick Warren was encouraging a schism within the global Anglican Communion because the American Episcopalian Church had a gay bishop, Gene Robinson. This very gay bishop, Gene Robinson, gave prayers before the concert on Sunday, and most people thought he was invited to
sort of level out,
things out. Yeah,
the controversy of having Rick Warren.
Yeah, I'll raise your Rick Warren with my Gene Robinson, basically. And after he did that, Rick Warren reached out to Gene Robinson. What I haven't heard coming out anyplace else is that less than a year ago, Rick Warren was encouraging a schism in the Anglican Church because of Gene Robinson. Now, back to the Congo War. What needs to be understood there is that Rwanda and Uganda are at war in Congo, have been since 1996, and really, most fundamentally, this is a U.S.-sponsored war. People think of the Congo War as being very far away, remote, hard to understand. There's all this propaganda about ethnic conflict. This is a U.S.-sponsored war. And the most important thing to understand about it is that the Congo War is a war for the U.S.'s ability to wage war. Congo is the most minerally dense, rich nation on Earth. The U.S. military industries depend on geostrategic minerals from Congo. I have here a document created by the Congressional Budget Office in 1982 saying that we had to be prepared to wage war in what was then Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, in order to secure the geostrategic minerals that we need to continue to manufacture for war. That's what we're doing now, what we've been doing since 1996.
So this began under the Clinton administration?
I'd say it began with the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, which Belgium and the CIA participated in 1961, 48 years ago Saturday, when there were demonstrations around the world and here in Raleigh and D.C. The Clinton administration is particularly implicated in the Rwandan genocide, what we know as the Rwandan genocide, in 1994, after which the United States went in and built a big military base in Kigali, Rwanda. Paul Kagame had intervened, had invaded from Uganda. He's now the president of Rwanda. It's an extremely authoritarian regime, and Rwanda is a U.S. puppet regime.
And Garrison, we only have a few moments left, but I did also want to bring up the Obama administration appears as though they will keep on George Bush's HIV/AIDS czar in the administration for Africa.
Yeah, Mark Dybul. Now this is very strange, because the whole responsible reproductive health, HIV/AIDS, family planning, sex and HIV education community is appalled that Barack Obama has reappointed George Bush's global HIV/AIDS czar, because he is responsible for promoting the irresponsible PEPFAR, that's President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief program in Africa, which Reverend Rick Warren lobbied heavily for, and then lobbied to restrict to abstinence only until married heterosexual monogamy, so-called HIV/AIDS prevention programs, which have been responsible for spreading HIV infection in Africa.
But I have heard some HIV/AIDS activists say that the Bush administration has been far better in addressing HIV/AIDS globally than it has nationally, and something that he's worked in collaboration with Barbara Lee.
Barbara Lee was the co-sponsor of PEPFAR, and now she's calling for a domestic PEPFAR because HIV/AIDS has become such a disaster in the Black American community. But
well, we are speaking with Ann Garrison. Ann Garrison, we have about 30 seconds
30 seconds.
left.
Okay, let's see. Stephen Lewis, who is has been the UN Special Envoy for AIDS in Africa, has said that U.S. HIV/AIDS interventions in Africa are dogmatically driven, fundamentally flawed, and damaging to Africa.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it right there. Ann Garrison is an independent journalist here in the Bay Area. She writes for such publications as the San Francisco Bay View, many others, including an online blog, Colored Opinions, at blogspot.com. Ann Garrison, thank you so much for joining us. And that does it for the morning show. I've been your guest host, Mitch Jeserich. I'm the executive producer of the show.